Continuing the tale of the apple from Kissing the Witch, my stepmother lay on her back and grew so limp I could see the bones below her eyes. When I brought her red-bound books and jeweled earrings, she turned her face away. I took to walking in the orchard on my own again, and once or twice boredom drove me a little way into the forest that lay beyond the castle walls. Fear enlivened those afternoons. I kept my back to the light and turned my head at every creak of wind. The forest was like a foreign court, with its own unspoken rules. The birches moved to music only they could hear. The oaks wanted for nothing, needed no touch. As another year stretched into spring, it was not my stepmother who lay swollen and sick, but my father. He curled up on his side like a bear troubled by flies. I stood by his bed on and off, but he was past caring. He cursed the doctors, he cursed his enemies, he cursed the 2 wives who had failed him, and finally, with a wet mouth, he cursed the son who had never come. My stepmother had called me to the throne room where she sat, huddled in ermine, fist closed round the scepter. "Say that I am queen," she said. "You are my father's wife," I replied. Smart. "I will be queen after he is dead," she said. I made no reply. "Say that I am queen," she repeated, her fingers whitening around the scepter. "If you really were," I told her, "it would need no saying." "Suck it," so she said. The last part. She stood on the pedestal above me. "The moment I am a widow," she said, "I could have you cast out." "Indeed." "If you cross me in this," she said confidingly, "I could have a huntsman take you to the forest, chop out your heart, and bring it back on a plate. Ha!" "Strong meat," I murmured. She's a sassy one. "I can do it!" she howled. "I have the power!" I said nothing. She lashed out with the scepter, but I stepped back and it crashed to the floor. I was gone before it rolled to a halt. That night I heard many feet hammer a track to my father's room. I flattened my face into my pillow. I waited. No sound cutting through the dark castle, no final word from me. The linen lay against my eyelids still dry. I decided not to stay to see what the day of the funeral would bring, which courtier's eyes would shine with flattery and which glitter with violence. I decided to leave it all to her and leave her to it. I filled my hems with gold pieces and slipped away. If it had been winter still, that first night would have finished me. Only the mild air was my salvation. Wider than I ever imagined, the forest was home to creatures I couldn't put names to, things with silver eyes and audible teeth. For all my furs, I didn't sleep a wink that night. By sunrise, I was more lost than any nestling. All my plans came to nothing. I never found the family of the maid who had raised me, nor an empty cottage to live in. Everything I put my tongue to tasted like poison. After wandering half-starved and half-crazed for more days than I can remember, I had the good fortune to be taken in by a gang of woodsmen. They put water to my stained lips and asked who I was. The truth was quicker than a lie, so I told it. They nodded. They had heard of the death of the king. One of them asked what was in my skirts to make them so heavy, and I said, "Knives." And he took his hand off my thigh and never touched me again. Well, that's a good way to keep men away from you. That first night they fed me, and every other night I fed them. Though squat and surly, with earth in every line of their faces, these were not bad men. And considering how little my condition entitled me to, they treated me royally. I guessed how to cook the food they threw on the table, gathering together from the shattered jigsaw of memory everything I must have seen the castle servants do 10,000 times. Gradually I learned how to keep hunger at bay and disease from the door, all the sorcery of fire and iron and water. Hard work was no hardship to me. It kept the pictures at bay. Whenever I slackened or stopped to rest by the fire, I was haunted by the image of my stepmother. My father was only a tiny picture in my mind, shut away like a miniature in a locket. But his young widow stalked behind my eyes, growing tall and wide as I let my mind dwell on her, now smiling, now spitting, ever stretching like a shadow against a wall. I pictured her life as the queen of the castle, and it was strangely familiar. Long days in charge of fire and iron and water. Her hands would stay smooth as lilies, while mine were scrubbed raw day by day, but we were living much the same kind of life. The men never asked what was in my mind, not even when I got lost in a daze and let the broth burn. They let me dream by the fire like a cat. This was only a lull. A time out of time. You see, I knew my stepmother would find me. The thread between us was stretched thin, wound round trees and snagged in thickets, but never broken. Somehow, I trusted she would track me down and kill me. Optimistic. But when she came at last, she seemed to have changed. I looked out over the half door one summer day, and there she stood in the clearing, hitching her horse to a tree. There was nothing of the wife about her when she smiled. "May I come into your house?" she asked. I said no, and turned away. Smart. But when I had stoked up the fire and boiled the shirts and chopped the turnips, I went back to the door out of curiosity, and she was still there with her back to the tree. I let her in for a minute. She said how thin I had grown. I said I was well. We said not a word of what was past. She said, "I keep breaking mirrors with my hideousness." I don't know. Sitting by the fire with her, I shut my eyes, and it felt like old times. She stood behind me and laced up my stays tightly, the way I could never lace them on my own. When they came home that night, the men found me alone in a sort of stupor. First they were anxious to hear my breaths come so quick and shallow, and then they were angry to see the turnips curling on the table and no food in the pot. Selfish. They said my stepmother had to be a sorceress to find me so deep in the forest. Some weeks went by, and I was myself again, scrubbing and mashing and earning my keep. The visit began to seem like another one of my daydreams. One afternoon, I was resting on a tree stump outside the cottage, snatching a moment of sun on my back, when I heard the jangle of her harness. This time, she knelt beside me, and there was nothing of the queen about her. "I haven't had a night's sleep since you left," she said. "It feels like dancing in shoes of red-hot iron. Will you come home now?" I said no, and turned my head away. She took out her jeweled comb and began to draw it through my hair, patient with all the burrs and knots my new life had put in it. I shut my eyes and let the points of the comb dig into my scalp, scraping down to the kernel of memory. When they came home that night, the men found me curled around the tree stump on the damp grass. They lifted me up and told me that my stepmother must be a witch to put such poison of idleness in my head. They warned me to stay inside and shut the door to all comers. For some weeks I did what I was told, kept house and kept quiet. My hair knotted again, my stays hung loose. But one afternoon in early autumn, I was troubled by a whiff of a scent of overpowering sharpness. I could not remember what it was. All I knew was that I could hardly stand it. I turned, and there at the half door my stepmother stood, an apple in her upturned hand. Stepmother. Yes, that was the word. But there was nothing of the mother about her. The apple was half ripe. One side was green, the other red. She bit into the green side and swallowed and smiled. I took the apple from her without a word, bit into the red side, and began to choke. Fear and excitement locked in a struggle in my throat, and blackness seeped across my eyes. I fell to the ground. It was all white where I went, like warm snow packed into the angles and crevices of my body. There was no light or noise or color. I thought I was treasure stowed away for safekeeping. When I came to, I was jolting along in an open coffin. Sunlight stabbed my eyelids. The woodsmen were bearing me down the mountain out of the woods. I gagged, coughed, sat up. How their eyes rounded! How they laughed to see me breathing! "But lie down," one said. "You are not well yet. Until you were poisoned, we had been forgetting who you are," said another. "Now we're taking you to another kingdom where they'll know how to treat a princess." "Lie down and rest, little one," said a third. "We have a long way to go." My head was still swimming. I thought I might faint again. But my mouth was full of apple, slippery, still hard, vinegary at the edges. I could feel the marks of my own teeth on the skin. I bit down and juice ran to the corners of my lips. It was not poisoned. It was the first apple of the year from my father's orchard. I chewed till it was eaten up, and I knew what to do. I made them set me down, and I got out of the box, deaf to their clamor. I stared around me till I could see the castle, tiny against the flame-colored forest away up the hill. I turned my face toward it and started walking. Snap! You didn't see that coming, did you? I didn't. Whoa! Twists and turns. Until next time, my friends.